So this is the interview with Brian Merriman regarding the Dublin International Gay Theatre Festival.
The International Dublin Gay
The
Theatre
International
Festival.
Dublin Gay Theatre Festival. And we're going to start by talking about how the festival begins each year. In the 23 years since its decriminalisation in this country, Irish attitudes towards homosexuality have become some of the most liberal and welcoming in the world. So much so that capital city Dublin plays host to one of the world's largest celebrations of gay-themed theatre, and has done for over a decade. The International Dublin Gay Theatre Festival is the largest of its kind in the world, and each May welcomes audiences and participants from all around the globe to this city. Founder and director of the festival, Brian Merriman, welcomed me to his home recently to talk about his festival and why it's important to build artistic platforms that are inclusive to everyone. By September each year, Brian is already deep in preparation for the following year's festivities.
Can you hear me? I can. I don't think I ever had a problem being heard in my life.
Oh, never.
Thanks, John.
Thank you for having me. How old is the festival now?
I started it in 2004. It came about, it was something, I'd done a master's degree in equality studies in UCD. Obviously I've been involved in LGBT rights for a long time. It came about as a combination of that. I did the master's because I was a bit burnt out in theatre. I had worked non-stop all my life, and I was getting very close to, I won't say to hating it, but certainly to it not doing me much good. So I took 2 years out. I only did 2 school shows, which I'd never done before during that time, and did my master's in equality studies. And I looked about how identity was constructed, how it was a positive or negative thing. And also, I wanted to, I suppose, to find a new outlet for my own theatre. I'd been in musical theatre all my life, and, I was becoming a teacher rather than a creator, and that didn't suit me. So I began to look at expressing an identity through the arts, and I went, but I don't want it to be the gay identity for gay people. We're always accused, gay people are always accused of being either air stewards, hairdressers, or in the theatre. So I said, if we're in the theatre, we should have an identity. And what was really interesting about that we were rarely recognised in the theatre other than the boy dancers. That phrase, the boy dancers, always got me thinking. And why were they boys and not men? They were boys because they were gay. So even within the theatre, there was a reduction in status, and it happened to me in 1993 that once I played gay in public, I was never cast straight again. So all of that went into the melting pot. All my equality studies went into the melting pot, and I decided, because I got an unexpected little break in my own pretty busy schedule, that I would see what I could do. And in 2004, coincidentally, it was the 150th anniversary of the birth of Oscar Wilde in Dublin, but that was a coincidence. I decided to see, could I put a festival up? No funding, no permission, no nothing. But if you have enthusiasm, it works. And we got 11 plays up in the first week in May, and I'd only decided to do it on the 31st of January. So that wasn't bad.
Why did Ireland need a gay theatre festival then?
I went in to see, we were 10 years, just over 10 years decriminalised. And as well as doing my master's, etc., there was another thing happened. And I went to see a Pride photographic exhibition in the front lounge. I walked up the stairs, looked around at all these magnificent coloured photographs that were all mounted on the wall, and I put my head in my hands. And I remember the organiser said, "Oh God, Brian, what are you finding fault with now?" Which is a terrible thing to say about me. And I said, "No fault," but I said, "Look, every single one of these images is masked. We are 10 years decriminalised. That's not necessarily free. Why are we still wearing masks in public?" So what I decided, that was another major moment when I decided, I said, we really need to, if we are going to be free, to assert our citizenship, to assert our identity, and I felt to assert the things that we do well in society. And the first one, and my reservoir, I suppose, of information was the arts. So I had no intention of doing a gay theatre festival for the gay community. I decided I was going to do a gay theatre festival for Irish society.
Despite the initial success of the festival and making Dublin the international hub for LGBT theatre for over 10 years, Brian faces the annual struggle of gaining support and finances for the festival. Funding is difficult to come by and mounts pressures on Brian from the get-go.
So when it comes to, say, the early chapters of the festival every year, around September, when things are beginning to develop, when it's going from out of the embers of the festival, say 2016, the festival for 2017 is beginning to raise its head. Who do you have to deal with alongside the theatre side of things?
Well, because we have been appallingly funded, this year, after 4,000 performances of brand new writing, creating new audiences and making Dublin the international hub of LGBT theatre, we hit 10,000 of funding from the Arts Council. But 10,000 funding won't get me any support staff, and it won't get me an office or anything like that. And I think after 14 years, that's a bit much. But it gets worse. We have made Dublin the international capital of this art form, and the City Council gives me 4,000. Fáilte Ireland will fly in a plane load of journalists to go and see a gay social event somewhere down the country, and we never got access to them. They give us 2,000, and then they ask us, how did you use this to market to get increased bed nights in Dublin? So the resources are down. I'm grateful to them that we got them. RT Sport and the Arts is another resource that we get in. But, one would have to say, and the frustration is they don't come to the event. So therefore, I think by staying away, it helps them justify the low levels, where they're really missing out on a huge dynamic. So yeah, I got to worry that. But that means that every year, because if we even had one bad year, we would go under. What I have done is that I pay for the venues, all of them, in advance. So by May, the end of May 2016, our cut of the box office funds the activity for 2017, and then that we work really hard selling the tickets in 2017 to produce it for the next year. That's how. So I have to roll over the funding, because if we lost in one festival, we would never ever recover. We have no capacity because we pay the actors. The companies are professional companies, and we don't take a lot out of it.
With so many obstacles already in his way, Brian faces the tasks of venue hire, liaising, networking and promoting his festival both at home and abroad. However, he's not alone. Each year he assembles a committee of volunteers who willingly give up their own time to bring the festival to life. From December, the volunteers meet regularly in Brian's home to update each other on progress, as well as ultimately deciding what plays will be accepted into the festival's programme.
It was sensational theatre, is all I can say. And I was amazed they bit. Because I said, look, we're too small for you. She said, I don't think we are. I have to say this, the volunteer base are brilliant because they are very adaptable. One time I was in a venue and the techie crew had just gone, lost from this company. I rang the tech director and I said, right, nothing's happening down here. Who have you got to spare? And he says, everything's happening up here, the whole lot. And he assembled the crew, and 12 hours later we had those shows up and running. But I never get, well, you'll owe me more for this, or that's not my job. There is that sense of flexibility with good volunteers, which I salute and depend upon and applaud.
Public Relations Director Conor Malloy is returning for his second year on the festival committee. Not only is he exceedingly busy all year round, but by February he is already generating interest for the festival launches in March, before the festival itself opens in May.
My main job would be to work closely with Brian in order to coordinate and to execute the entire festival and everything that goes along with that. And it's quite extensive and exhaustive, I suppose. So things like organising press launches, social events and fundraisers, that's all happening now. Because this has to happen next month, essentially, all of these things, a good 2 months before the festival actually begins. And, looking into things like media appearance opportunities and interviews on TV and radio, that kind of thing, that all has to happen now. I'm in the process of writing about 5 different press releases and compiling media lists and interest group lists of people in order to send those to, in order to attract attention and to spark an interest. It all has to kind of be done now, networking, it's PR, it's all about who you know, not what you know. Well, I don't like admitting that, but a lot of it is true.
Because this is a lot to do.
Yes.
On a voluntary basis.
Yes, it is.
There's a lot of the energy to get this stuff done, and obviously we're stroking his ego here. Does it come from Brian?
It does in a way, and stroke. It does in a way. There is no one better at I suppose not to use the word energize, but to energize you, to get you kind of pumped up to do things. You know, he really believes in the people around him, and he's really good at just kind of saying, you know, we can do this, you know, and it always happens. You always get it done. So I think a lot of it does come from Brian. You know, also a lot of us on the committee are masochists, so you know we can't stay away and we can't stop.
Alongside his year-round work on the festival committee, and by being one of its youngest ever members, Conor can also note a wider importance for the Dublin Gay Theatre Festival in relation to the current theatre scene in Ireland.
A lot of people say, you know, why are you marketing yourself? Why are you branding yourself as a gay theatre festival? Why is that important? Why can't it just be a theatre festival that has gay people in it, you know? And that is really what it is. But the reason why we call ourselves a gay theatre festival is that, you know, despite the stereotype that, you know, oh, everyone in theatre is gay, you know, it has like this kind of real gay connotation if you work in theatre. The real fact of the matter is that the majority, and in this country in particular, but generally the world over, the majority of playwrights, producers, directors, working ones, the majority of them are straight men. There are very few women and gay people, and especially I don't think I've ever met a trans director or a trans playwright. You know, that kind of way. It's just the way that there's kind of a systematic, you know, subtle kind of dismissal, I suppose, of gay people's art and theatre falling into that as well. So it's important to provide, you know, an opportunity for these people to present their work, which they might not otherwise have, like to affirm their theatre, affirm their art. It is important.
Another central individual to the festival is Senator David Norris, the man who campaigned for so long on the front line for the decriminalisation of homosexuality in 1993 and the equal marriage referendum of 2015, has been a long-serving patron to the festival. He remains one of the greatest authorities of homosexual rights in Ireland, commenting on how fortunate Irish people are to have access to a yearly festival that celebrates same-sex love in a country where till so recently it was forbidden.
I mean, I missed out on so many experiences. I mean, holding hands at the back of the cinema, first dates, all this kind of stuff. No, I had it. And I have said to people recently, I spent so much time, as far as marriage equality now was concerned, pushing the boat out, that when I looked up, it had gone out beyond the harbour, and there were little figures on it waving at me, and there I was, left on my own on the strand.
That's the saddest thing ever.
Oh, it's not really. There are always difficulties for people, and not just gay people, for heterosexual people too, growing up when your hormones are whizzing around and you sort of get an erection on the back of a bus that goes over a bump, that sort of thing. It's embarrassing and so on. So for everybody there is this confusion, and there still are problems of identification for young gay people in the country, for example, in isolated villages and so on. But apart from that, I would say we have to look outwards, because we're extremely lucky in Ireland to have such a tolerant regime which enables gay people to live full lives now, even to the point of getting married. So that's all very positive, but we're in a very small minority. You know, if you look around the globe, I mean, a place like Russia with that inadequate ass Putin, you know, and not only his anti-gay measures, which are pretty horrible, but the thing he passed a week or two ago, where it's not an offence to beat the crap out of your wife as long as you don't break a bone. You know, it's shocking stuff.
Mm-hmm. And so, in that sense, for Dublin to have a festival which kind of celebrates this and then promotes the issues that still tag along with gay people in society, is that a rarity?
It's extremely remarkable. And it is down to one man. I mean, it's down to Brian Merriman. I mean, he is the only begetter of this, and he has pursued it with an absolute passion. And he's gone out and he's got commercial sponsorship, and I mean, if you think about it, I mean, there are 40, 50 plays. You know, it's an astonishing range. And they come from America, they come from the European countries, they come from all over the world. I mean, it is a really big deal. I think it certainly must be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, gay theatre festival in the world.
He kind of claims it's the biggest.
I imagine it is. Mm-hmm. Yes, I imagine it is.
There still seems to be, though, a slight neglect of gay-themed theatre in the mainstream.
Oh yes, there is. There's no doubt about that.
What would you put that down to?
Well, I put it down, first of all, there hasn't been a huge amount of really good gay theatre in the mainstream. But But there isn't very much. If you consider that 10% of the population are gay, we certainly don't get anything like 10% of the theatre productions or 10% of the number of characters who are gay. And I remember actually many years ago writing to RTE and suggesting that they put a gay character in their soap operas. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the contempt with which that suggestion was treated, as if it was absurd and came from the far side of the moon. But now, of course, they have gay characters. There's a kiss on Ross Naroon between two men and so on and so forth. So things have certainly changed a great deal.
What is for some a year in the making has taken others like Senator Norris nearly a lifetime of work to achieve. By the beginning of May each year, the flags bearing the likeness of Oscar Wilde have been hung along the quays of the River Liffey, and thousands upon thousands of leaflets promoting the festival have been distributed to bars, shops and restaurants around Dublin city centre, and Brian Merriman has volunteered nearly 10 months of his year to ensuring that his festival launches like clockwork. Rarely, however, do proceedings go quite as planned.
The actual days the fest begins, where do you normally find yourself?
Usually, I think when the festival is like that weekend, the weekend before the bank holiday when it comes in, I'm probably excluded from every home from the bewildered in the city. I see every helpline hangs up on me, and I realise that I'm now on my own, and it's all my fault. I don't know the people who are going to land, and I don't know if I'm going to meet a lovely person or a raving lunatic, and I have met both. We don't know when we go in the door. We hire a venue, we plug in the first plug, and everything blows. Sound, lights, and the whole lot blows. And we are on a Sunday morning, and there's people in vans going all up and down the country to try and get the equipment in because, we've got a 4-hour check with a company from Venezuela and they've got to have their stuff. But I don't know what's going to happen. And from a programming point of view, and even though I do my research and I have some ambassadors around the world whose opinion I do rely on, I might get a brilliant script very badly done, or I might get a fairly decent script brilliantly done. And of course that's the surprise of each festival programme. And I've had 1 or 2 absolute turkeys as well. I mean, certifiable rubbish. So we roll up the sleeves, I suppose, we break the ice on Saturday night and say if you arrive in Dublin on Saturday night, come and have a drink with us. On Sunday morning, we're up and out, there's a van on the road going between the 4 or 5 venues, etc. I usually do a seminar. We've taken particular subjects like women in gay theatre, like writers, Edwards and MacLeamore. We did one on 1916 last year. I'm going to do one on Love in the Trenches this year, which is World War One. And I will, of course, visit every venue and meet every company. We have a venue manager in the place. We have a tech director in each venue. And we cope. I mean, God bless mobile phones. We cope.
The International Dublin Gay Theatre Festival is now in its 14th year and acts as an artistic celebration of same-sex love and the progress of homosexual rights in this country. But for Brian Merriman, the real importance of his festival is one that transcends the actors on stage and reaches out to the audience members who come to witness his shows.
I'm a planner and I hate being in the unknown. Now, what I have to keep in my mind, that sometimes the unknown gives me a great dividend. Some beautiful pieces, some great artists, some lovely performances, even some great audience reaction to things, or we get headbangers. One woman invaded the box office one day at the height of the booking period that day and started to scream and roar and threatened to commit suicide because she needed to make a phone call. And we eventually established the fact that the reason she needed to ring home was that she wanted to speak to her dog. We have to cope with things like that, as well as cope with the moment when you walk into a young writer or to an older actor and you just see magic. And there has been magic. There's the moment when at the end of an evening an old man just came over to an evening and said, I'm gay. I said, sure, that's grand, you're in the right place. And he said, no, you don't understand something. I said, what is it? You're the first person I've ever told. And when your theatre does that, never mind the lunatics, that is amazing. And the fact that we put that on in his hometown and he could come to it and be treated with respect, that is amazing.
The International Dublin Gay Theatre Festival runs from May 1st to May 17th in venues across Dublin city centre. Further information can be found at www.gaytheatre.ie. This documentary was produced and written by John Kelly, with special thanks to Senator David Norris, Brian Merriman, Conor Malloy and all those at the International Dublin Gay Theatre Festival who gave up their time to help make it.